Mira sat alone again. The stone bench near the waste ducts was rough, but she was used to it. She placed her food tray on her lap and began to eat slowly. The wind blew softly across the edge of the school, carrying the smell of metal and steam. This place was far from the dining hall, but no one ever told her to come here. She just knew it was where she was expected to sit inside the cafeteria. Students laughed and talked in groups. Long glass tables shimmered under the warm ceiling. Lights, meals from many planets were served in silver trays. Everything was clean, bright, and full of voices. But Mira was not welcome there. She was different. Her skin had a faint earthy tone, and her eyes were silver green. Her hair was dark and curly. Most students had smooth, shining hair or bright-colored skin from distant worlds. Mira was part Varnari. Long ago, the Varnari people helped rescue dying planets. They used their bond with soil and plants to bring life back. But that was a long time ago. Now people only remember the bad stories. They call her dirty. Old world, or worse. Not with loud voices, but with glances and distance. At first, Mira tried to sit with others. She smiled and asked if a seat was free. No one said no directly, but someone would always cough, stand up, or say they were waiting for a friend. She got the message. After a few weeks, she stopped trying. Mira's meals were simple grain cakes, green stew, sometimes a dry fruit. Her tray never had the golden labels that marked the premium meals. Still, she didn't mind the food. She ate in silence, letting the wind pass by her ears. The day felt the same until a voice called out, soft and clear, "Hey, is this seat taken?" Mira looked up. A boy stood in front of her, holding a food tray in both hands. His skin was light brown, and his hair was short and black. He wore the same academy uniform as everyone else, dark blue with a silver crest on the shoulder. She didn't know him. His badge said his name was Tom. She had not seen him before. Mira blinked, unsure if he was talking to someone else, but there was no one nearby. She shook her head slowly. Tom smiled and sat down beside her. The bench creaked. Mira sat very still. She expected him to joke or say something strange. Maybe he lost a bet or had a reason to mock her. But he just opened his tray and started eating. "Food's not bad," he said after a while. Though the grain's a bit dry. Mira glanced at him. He wasn't even looking at her now. He just kept eating like this was normal. She kept quiet. After a moment, Tom pointed to something on her tray. "What's that green stuff? Smells kind of like pepper." Mira hesitated. Then she said, "It's called Miran stew. My grandmother used to make it." Tom nodded. "Looks good." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Mira kept checking to see if he would leave. He didn't. She noticed he had a slice of fruit cake and half a sandwich. Slowly, she relaxed a little. "I haven't seen you before," she said softly. "Yeah," he replied. "I just transferred in from Station 9. My dad's a mechanic on the outer ring. We move around a lot." Mira nodded. She liked how his voice was calm. Not fast, not sharp, just easy. Tom took a bite of his sandwich, then turned to her again. "Why do you eat out here?" She froze. She looked down at her tray. For a second, she thought of lying. Maybe say she liked the wind or the view. But her mouth moved before her mind could stop it. "They don't want me inside." Tom frowned. "What do you mean?" Mira shrugged. "People think I don't belong. I'm part Varnari. They don't say it out loud, but you can feel it." Tom was quiet for a while. Then he said, "That's dumb." Mira looked at him. "I mean it." He continued, "That's just dumb, sitting with someone doesn't cost anything. Food tastes the same wherever you sit." Mira smiled a little, though she didn't mean to. It just happened. The wind shifted. A soft chime rang out in the distance. Lunch break was almost over. Tom finished his last bite and stood up. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked. Mira didn't know what to say. She nodded. He smiled again. "Cool. I'll bring 2 cakes next time. You can tell me if I picked a good one." Then he walked away, heading back to the main hall. Mira sat there for a while, looking at the empty space he had left for the first time in a long while. She didn't feel invisible. She looked at the last bite of Murin stew on her tray. It still tasted the same, but somehow it felt warmer. Tom flew his ship through the dark part of space. People called it the Quiet Belt. Because no one lived there, and nothing moved, the stars were far apart, the air outside was cold. And still his small ship made a low humming sound as it passed through. The Shadowsh looked at the map again. It was old and faded. Some parts had been drawn by hand, with little marks and notes, but this signal he had found was not on any map. It was soft and strange, like music from another world. He leaned back in his seat and listened. The sound came and went like waves. Sometimes it grew louder, then it would fade again, but it never stopped. It had no voice, only soft notes rising and falling like a song without words. Tom was not a hero. He had no big mission. He was a cargo runner who moved goods from one place to another. He liked quiet jobs and empty paths. But something about this signal felt different. He didn't know why, but he wanted to follow. I checked his ship's system and set the course toward the source of the sound. It was near a broken trade route no longer used by pilots. Long ago, ships had passed through there, but now it was forgotten. As he moved closer, the space around him changed. A light blue fog appeared outside the windows. Small lights floated inside the fog like tiny stars. They moved slowly, like they were watching him. Slowed the ship and scanned ahead. The signal was stronger now. It was coming from behind a cluster of rocks hidden inside the fog. Turned on his front lights and looked around. That's when he saw it. A small space station sat between the rocks. Its walls were round and smooth like melted glass. It had no name or number on it. Its color was pale silver, with soft lines running across it like vines. Tom brought his ship close and parked on the landing pad. The station lights turned on as he arrived. They were not bright, but gentle, like they were waking up after a long sleep. Put on his jacket and stepped outside. The air inside the station was clean and cool. The floor was quiet beneath his boots. The walls had patterns that looked like leaves and water ripples. Walked slowly, following the sound. It was clearer now. It led him through curved halls and empty rooms. Some lights turned on as he passed, others stayed dark. Then he reached a large room at the center. It had high walls and a round ceiling. In the middle were the crystal pods glowing with soft blue light. Inside each pod was a young girl. They looked peaceful, as if they were only sleeping. Tom stood still. His heart beat faster. He read the names written on the edge of the platform. Neri and Self. Names meant nothing to him, but something about them felt important. He stepped closer and looked at their faces. They were calm and gentle. Their clothes were simple, but made from fine fabric with soft colors and light patterns. Saw small glowing stones near their heads. The stones gave off a faint light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Tom reached out and touched one of them. In that moment, something happened. His mind filled with images. He saw green towers in the sky and a woman with silver eyes singing under a tree. He saw two girls playing near a floating garden, chasing lights that danced around them. He saw a world full of color and peace. Then he saw the sky open and pull the girls away into the dark. The images faded. Tom stepped back, breathing slowly. He now understood these were not lost travelers. They were someone's daughters, someone who had been waiting for a long time. Looked at the pods again. They were still working, but weak. He checked the system near the base. It showed that the life support was running low. The station had kept them alive for years, but it would not last much longer. Tom made a choice. He went back to the ship and brought out a hover bed. He carefully moved each pod onto it and brought them one by one to his ship. It took time, but he was careful not to shake or drop anything when he placed them safely inside his ship. He sat down and looked at them again. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "I'll get you home." He started the ship and left the fog behind. As he moved into clear space, the signal stopped. There was no need for it now. He had found what it was trying to show him. Sat in the pilot seat thinking. Didn't know where their home was. He didn't know their language or their people, but he knew he had to try. He had seen the woman in the vision, the one with silver eyes and a voice full of music. He felt she was still waiting. He turned on his ship's memory log and searched again for anything that matched the names or the stones. He didn't find much, but he found one word that was repeated in the vision. Velerate was not on any chart he had. It was not in any public record, but now it had meaning. Tom leaned back and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, a mother was still hoping. Somewhere, a garden waited to bloom again, and a human who had never been to that world was now the one to bring them home. Tom's ship moved quietly through space. The stars outside looked like small candles in a dark room inside the ship. Everything was calm. The two crystal pods were placed gently in the back room. Tom checked on them every hour. The lights on the pods still glowed, but they were dim. Sat near the control panel, reading the data from the station. Again, the names Nari and Scylla were clear. Their birth years matched dates from a system he had never heard of. He also found a symbol near the names. It looked like a flower with 3 petals and a circle in the center. Took a deep breath and leaned back. "Where are you from?" he asked softly, as if the girls could hear ship move through space. Like a small leaf on a wide river. Tom watched the girls for a long time, wondering what they had seen, where they had been, and who was missing them. Then something unexpected happened. A soft sound came from the back room. Tom stood up and walked quickly to the pods. One of them was opening. The crystal top lifted slowly. A soft mist rose into the air. The girl inside opened her eyes, blinked a few times, and looked around. Her eyes were light green and full of wonder. She sat up slowly and placed her hand on the edge of the pod. Tom stepped back and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "Hello," he said gently. "It's okay, you're safe now." The girl looked at him without fear, but with a little confusion. She tried to speak, but her voice was too soft. She touched her throat and looked around and pointed to himself. "Tom," he said, then pointed to her with a smile. She looked at him for a moment, then placed her hand on her chest and said, "Scylla." Tom smiled again and nodded. "Scylla, nice to meet you." The second pod began to open. The other girl woke up slowly, just like her sister. Her hair was the same dark gold color, and her face looked almost the same, but her eyes were a soft blue. Scylla turned to her and held her hand. "Nari," she said. The girl smiled and whispered, "Scylla." Tom watched them quietly. They spoke in soft voices, using words he did not understand, but their hands moved in a special way. They used signs and small gestures. It was clear they understood each other without needing full sentences. Walked to the corner of the room and brought a bottle of water. He handed it carefully to Scylla. She looked at it, then opened the lid and took a small sip. Nari did the same. Tom moved back and let them rest. They were weak but awake. He went to the ship's storage room and found some soft blankets. He placed them on the floor and brought some soft fruit from his supplies. He sliced it and placed it on a small tray. The girls sat on the blankets and tasted the fruit slowly. They smiled a little and looked around the room. Their faces were calm but curious. Tom sat on the floor near them, but not too close. He pulled out a small pad and began drawing shapes. He drew a star, a planet, and then pointed out the window. Scylla leaned closer and watched. Then she took the pad and drew something. It looked like a tall tree with flowers at the top. She drew a small sun and something that looked like a bird. And watched with interest. He nodded and pointed to the tree, then placed his hand on his chest. Scylla smiled and shook her head gently. Then she pointed at herself, then at the tree. Tom understood now. The tree was from her world. It was something she remembered. Ed turned to the screen and showed a map. He pointed to places and shook his head as if asking if any of them looked familiar. The girls stood up slowly and walked to the screen. Scylla looked carefully, then pointed to a dark part of the map, a place with no names or lights. Tom zoomed in and saw a small group of stars. He marked it and nodded. "Valora," he said softly, hoping he had guessed right. Nari looked at him with wide eyes. She pointed at him and repeated, "Valora." He smiled again and nodded. 3 of them sat in silence for a while. The ship made its usual humming sound outside, but inside it felt warm, like a small family learning how to talk. Tom knew it would take time to reach Valora, if it was even real, but he felt something change inside him, a new feeling, a sense of purpose. That these girls had been lost for a long time, yet they were here now, safe and awake. They trusted him even without words. She looked at them and said, "I'll take you home, I promise." They did not understand his words, but they felt the kindness in his voice. They smiled and nodded. That night, Tom set the course toward the area the girls had pointed to. He did not know what they would find or who would be waiting, but for the first time in years, someone had heard a call in the stars and answered. Iden, in a quiet corner of the universe, the sisters who had been lost were on their way home. Tom's ship moved slowly through the dark stretch of stars. He had set the course toward the area the girls had pointed to. It was deep space with no known stations or names marked on the map. Still, Tom trusted them. Each day the ship moved closer, and each day the girls grew stronger. Scylla and Nari spent time walking around the small ship. They looked at everything with curious eyes. Sometimes they laughed when they touched buttons that made lights blink. Other times they watched the stars through the window and whispered words in their soft language at him. Started learning simple signs with his hands. The girls showed him how to say sky, food, sleep, and thank you. He taught them his own words too. They were fast learners and smiled often when they understood. On evening, while Sela and Nari were resting, Tom checked the long-range scanner. A small alert appeared on the screen. Another ship was nearby and moving in their direction. His heart beat faster. It was rare to see another ship in this part of space. He turned on the camera and zoomed in. The ship was bigger than his. It had sharp wings and heavy engines. It was painted dark gray and carried a mark on the side, a symbol like a claw around a globe. Tom recognized it. It belonged to a man named Bren. Was a trade lord who moved rare goods between planets. He did not follow rules. He believed everything had a price. Even Peopleton's fingers moved quickly across the controls. He lowered power and dimmed the outside. Let's hoping Bren's ship would pass by without stopping, but the other ship changed direction. It was coming straight toward them. Tom stood up and walked to the back room where the girls were seated. We have company, he said gently. I need you to stay quiet and let me talk. The girls looked at him with calm eyes. They didn't understand his words, but they trusted his voice. The screen in the control room lit up. A message came through. This is Lord Bren's ship. Identify yourself and open your channel. Tom took a deep breath and pressed the button. This is a private ship on a peaceful journey, he said, just passing through. There was a pause. Then a face appeared on the screen, a tall man with silver rings on his fingers and long dark hair. I know your ship, the man said. You're the one who found that old signal in the quiet belt. Tom said nothing. Bren leaned forward. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to see who you picked up from that station. They're under my care, Tom said. They're not for trade or sale. They are going home. Bren laughed softly. Everything has value, my friend. If those girls are who I think they are, they belong to a royal line. I could make 10 years profit with one picture of them. Tom kept his voice calm. They're not for sale. I don't want trouble. Please leave us in peace. Bren narrowed his eyes. You don't get to decide that. The screen went black. Tom felt the ship shake slightly. Bren's ship was locking on with a magnetic hold. Stood quickly and moved back to the girls. They had heard the voice and felt the ship move. To knelt in front of them. I need your help, he said. Sela looked at him and pointed to the wall map. Then she placed both hands over her heart and closed her eyes. A soft light began to shine from her fingers. Nari joined her. The light grew stronger. It moved like soft water through the air, forming lines and symbols. Tom watched with wide eyes. The lines moved toward the ship's main screen and touched it. A new path appeared. It was a narrow line between stars, almost invisible to the item. Jumped back to the controls and entered the path into the system. The engines hummed louder and the ship pulled free from Bren's hold. For a moment, Bren's voice came again through the speaker. You don't know what you're doing. Come back now and no one gets hurt. Tom didn't answer. He trusted the path the girls had shown. The ship jumped forward and disappeared into a small light. The stars blurred around them. As they entered the hidden routine side the ship, everything shook for a moment, but then became quiet again. Tom looked back. The girls were tired but smiling. Sela pointed at the new path and said one word, home. Tom nodded slowly. I had escaped for now, but he knew Bren would not stop easily. The trade lord had seen the girls and knew their value. He would search again, but Tom also knew something else now. Girls were not lost anymore. They remembered more than he thought. They knew the way, and they had power beyond what he understood. He turned to the map and looked at the line ahead. It was long and narrow, but clear. The girls had trusted him, and now he would trust the Moss. The ship moved through the secret path. Tom sat beside them and smiled. We'll get there, he said. No matter who tries to stop us. The stars outside moved like a river, and the journey continued. The morning sun rose slowly above the hills of Nova 3. The sky turned a soft gold. Long shadows stretched across the ground. A quiet wind moved through the tall grass. It was the third day of their journey. Ren walked carefully through the open land. The exhaust suit was still working, but it moved slower now. Its power cells were getting low. The light on his wrists blinked yellow. Not red yet, but close. Lena rested in his arms, her head tilted gently on his shoulder. Her leg was still wrapped. She hadn't said much that morning. She knew the suit was tired, and so was Ren. You should stop for a while, she said softly. Just a few minutes. Ren looked ahead at the rocky path. There's a better place to rest up there. She nodded and stayed quiet. The trail climbed upward, over a short ridge. Small rocks covered the path. The suit adjusted as Ren stepped. Carefully, he moved slowly to avoid slipping. His eyes stayed on the ground, scanning each step. But as he reached the top of the ridge, one of the rocks shifted under his foot. It rolled loose, and his balance tilted. The exhaust suit tried to correct, but it was already tired. The weight shifted the wrong way. Ian fell. It was not a hard fall. The suit protected most of the impact. He twisted his body to shield Lena as they landed on the slope. Dust rose around them. A few rocks slid down beside them. Lena gasped as they hit the ground. Ren, are you all right? Ren didn't answer right away. He stayed still for a few seconds, checking if anything was broken. Then he slowly lifted his head. I'm fine, he said. Just slipped. He looked down at Lena. She was safe, a little shaken, but not hurt. The suit had done its job. She reached up and touched his shoulder. You're shaking. It's the suit, he replied. Cooling system is low. Lena sat up with his help and looked around. The ridge was not too high, but it would take time to climb again. They had fallen into a dip between hills, where the ground was uneven and dry. Ian checked the suit. Few scratches, but no cracks. The power level was blinking faster now, still yellow, but close to red. You can't carry me the whole way like this, Lena said. It's too much. I can, Ren replied. You shouldn't. He looked at her. You wouldn't leave me. She smiled sadly. No, I wouldn't. Ren sat beside her and opened a small box from his belt. Inside were 2 energy capsules. He placed one into the suit's power port. The blinking slowed a little. Not much, but enough. He handed Lena the other one. For your scanner. She took it but held it in her lap. You need it more than I do. I'll manage. They stayed there for a few minutes. The sun rose higher. The light was warm on their faces. A small animal ran past in the distance, its feet kicking up dust. Lena turned to him. Do you know why I really came to Nova 3? You said plants. Ren answered. Double quotes, yes. But that's only part of it. Back on Earth, I didn't feel useful. I wanted to start fresh. I wanted to matter. You do. Ren said. She looked down at her leg. It doesn't feel that way now. I'm just a weight you carry. You're more than that, he said. She looked at him. You don't say much, but when you do, I believe you. Ren nodded once, then stood. He bent down and lifted her again. The suit groaned softly. The lights blinked, but it held. They walked forward slowly. The ridge behind them grew smaller. The path ahead curved around a large rock wall. They were close now. Just one more wide valley, and they would see the edge of the human camp. But the way was not easy. The land was dry and cracked. Sharp plants grew from the ground like spikes, removed carefully, finding safe places to step. The suit's warning lights blinked again. Red this time. Lena watched his face. Sweat rolled down his cheek. His eyes stayed sharp, but she could see the effort in every step. You can stop, she said. Ian didn't answer. You can rest. Just for a minute. I can't stop now, he replied. We're close. How close? He pointed ahead. After that bend, maybe 1 hour. She was quiet for a while, then said, I'll walk if I have to. Just help me stand. You'll fall. Ren said. Then we fall together. Ren stopped walking. He looked at her, then slowly sat down on a flat rock. He didn't put her down yet, just sat with her in his arms, catching his breath. Lena placed her hand on his chest. You're strong, but you're still human. I know, he said, and you're carrying more than my weight. I chose to, Ren said. Lena leaned her head against him, and I'm grateful. They sat together for a few more minutes. The red light on the suit blinked slower now, not from power returning, but from quiet. Then, in the far distance, they heard something, a small sound, a voice, a signal. Ren looked toward the bend. The sound came again, a human voice, faint but clear. Camp was close. He stood again. The suit responded with a soft hum. One last push. Lena looked up at him. Let's finish this. Ren nodded, and he walked out one step at a time. Through dust, through heat, through silence, he carried her. Forward, toward home. The sound grew louder with each step. It was a steady signal. Like a soft voice calling from far away, Ren followed it, his arms still wrapped around Lena. The exhaust moving with slow, heavy steps. The power light on his wrist was red now. The warning beep had gone silent, not because the danger was gone, but because the suit no longer had the energy to give more warnings. Ren said nothing. He just kept walking. Lena looked up at his face. His jaw was tight. His skin was pale. Sweat dripped from his forehead, but his eyes stayed focused. He had carried her for 3 days across rough land, through storms and hills, without asking for help. Now he was using the last of his strength. We're almost there, she whispered. Ryan nodded. He didn't speak. Speaking took energy. Right now, every part of him was focused on the next step. They reached the top of a low hill. Below it, spread across a wide flat plain, was the camp. Long silver buildings, soft landing lights, and moving figures. People walked between tents and greenhouses. A few looked up at the hill. One of them pointed, then another. Soon, a small group started running toward the hill. Lena blinked as the sun touched the edge of the buildings. They see us. Ren kept walking. The ground became smoother as he stepped onto the camp's outer path. The first person to reach them was a medical tech. He slowed down as he saw Ren. Is she hurt? The tech asked. Ren stopped and gently lowered Lena onto the soft grass. Then he dropped to one knee. The exhaust made a long, low sound and powered down completely. She needs help, Ren said quietly. Lena grabbed his arm. He does too. More people arrived. Two nurses helped Lena onto a small stretcher. Another team checked Ren. One of them touched his arm. You all right? Ren nodded slowly. Just tired. The nurse looked at the exhaust. How far did you carry her? Ren looked out toward the hills. 3 days. Everyone went silent for a moment. Lena reached for Ren's hand as they lifted her. You didn't leave me, she said. I never would, he replied. They brought both of them into the medical station. The rooms were bright and cool. Machines checked Lena's leg and gave her treatment. A doctor smiled at her. You're lucky, the doctor said. Nothing broken. But you need rest. She nodded. What about Ren? He's in the next room, the doctor said. Mild dehydration. He pushed the exhaust far beyond the limit. He'll be fine, but he needs sleep. Lena lay back on the bed, her eyes on the wall. She remembered every step, every fall, every quiet moment he had carried her without asking for anything. She had begged him to leave her, but he never did. The next morning, she stood with help from a walking stick and went to see him. Ren was sitting on the edge of the bed, eating a small meal. He looked up when she walked in. You're up, he said. So are you, she replied. He nodded. The suit's broken, needs repairs. You're worried about the suit, she laughed. It was useful. She sat beside him. You were more useful. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lena spoke again. You know, when I first joined the mission, I didn't know anyone here. I thought I would just work in the greenhouse and go back home when the mission ended. You still can, Ren said. She shook her head. Not anymore. This place feels like home now. He looked at her. Because of the plants? No, she said. Because of you. Ren looked down at his hands. He didn't know what to say. Lena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small seed capsule. I saved this during the quake. It's from that rare plant I found. Ren took it gently. The seed was tiny, light green, with soft ridges. I want to plant it near the greenhouse, she said. But only if you help me. I'll help, he said without thinking. I thought you might. She smiled. Later that day, the camp director came to speak with them. She had heard the full story. We'll record your journey in the mission log, the director said. It will help others learn how far people can go when they don't give up. Ren didn't reply. He didn't care about records. He only cared that Lena was safe. As the sun set, the two of them walked together to the greenhouse. Slowly but without pain. The land around the camp was quiet again. Birds flew overhead. When moved through the grass, they found a small spot near the edge of the greenhouse wall. "This is the place," Lena said. Ren knelt and opened the ground with a small tool. Lena placed the seed gently into the soil. He covered it with care. Then they both sat beside it, watching the spot in silence. It would take time to grow. Weeks, maybe months, but it was planted, and that was enough for now. The days passed slowly at the camp. The sun rose and fell, painting the sky in orange and pink. Inside the greenhouse, small leaves started to peek through the soil where Lena had planted the seed. It was a small sign of life, fragile but full of promise. Lena watched the little plant grow with quiet hope. She still used her walking stick, but each day she felt stronger. Ren was also getting better. The doctors said the exhausted had helped save them both. Now it was resting in the repair room, waiting for the right parts to come. One morning, Ren joined Lena in the greenhouse. The air smelled sweet and fresh. Light passed through the glass, warming their faces. "You think the plant will grow big?" Ren asked. Lena smiled softly. "I hope so. It's a special plant. It can help many people here." Ren looked at her, then around the greenhouse filled with green leaves and colorful flowers. "It feels good to be here. With you." She nodded. "I feel that too." The two spent their days working together. Ren helped in the fields, fixing small machines and learning about the plants. Lena shared what she knew about the rare plants and the seeds. Slowly, they built a new life. But not everything was easy. The camp was still far from the old cities they once knew. Supplies arrived slowly. Messages from Earth were rare. Sometimes the nights were cold, and the loneliness crept in. One evening, Ren stood outside looking at the stars. The sky was clear and full of bright points. He thought about the journey they had taken, the long days, the danger, and the hope. Lena came beside him. "You're thinking again," she said. "Just about the future," Ren answered. "About what comes next." She looked at the sky too. "We don't have to be afraid. We have each other and this place." Ren smiled. "That's true." Suddenly, a loud sound broke the quiet. People started running toward the camp's main area. A ship was landing on the far field. It was a small craft, dusty and old-looking, but it was new to the camp. The director walked quickly to meet the ship's crew. Soon she returned with news. "Supplies shipped from Earth," she said. "They bring important messages." Everyone gathered to hear the news. The captain of the ship explained that Earth was sending more support for the colony. New equipment, seeds, and even new people would arrive soon. Lena looked at Ren. "This means our home can grow." "Yes," Ren said. "We helped each other get here. Now it's time to help others grow." The camp felt alive with hope. People talked, laughed, and planned for the future. The small seed in the greenhouse was no longer alone. It was part of a bigger story. Weeks later, Ren stood beside the growing plant. Its green leaves had spread wide, and tiny flowers began to open. Lena came with a smile. "Look at it. It's beautiful." Ren nodded. "Just like us." She reached for his hand. "Thank you for never giving up. I couldn't leave you," he said simply. The sun shone down on them as they stood together. The journey had been hard, but it was not the end. It was a new beginning.